Hi everyone, welcome back. How's it going? Continuing to talk about science fiction films here. Today, Starman is the film from 1984. It was released by Columbia Studios. The film starred Jeff Bridges and Karen Allen, Charles Martin Smith in a supporting role. The film was directed by John Carpenter, and this is the Shout Factory Blu-ray that I have right here, which is pretty good. I might say some more about that. So Starman takes a traditional science fiction premise where Karen Allen, we first meet her character. She's a widow. Her husband has recently passed away from an accident. We see him, or we see her, watching old film of her husband, Jeff Bridges, who played him. And then we shift to a spacecraft that is landing on Earth, and the government tracks this spaceship or UFO, I guess you call it. And they at first they think it's the Russians or something, but anyway, they shoot it down. It's an extraterrestrial craft, and it's near Karen Allen's home where she's living. It's an extraterrestrial species that has landed. It enters into her home and it manages to find a DNA from her husband, and this extraterrestrial is able to materialize as her husband, Jeff Bridges, playing her husband, as returned. I guess they called it clone. The alien was able to clone itself. So we have a lot of like sci-fi stuff at the beginning of this movie that throws a lot of information at you, and of course, initially, part of the story is, of course, how do you even play that scene? Initially, Karen Allen's terrified that her husband has reappeared. At first, she's very suspicious of him. The plot of the movie is about where she has to take him to the landing site where his people will come pick him up and take him off the planet. So that might sound a lot like E.T., and really, I think this movie is like a more adult-oriented version of E.T. E.T. as a romantic love story, you might say, and that's what happens through the course of the film as they travel. She's initially distrustful of him, but eventually they fall in love, and there's that fantastical side of it. But it's written well, and the acting by Jeff Bridges and Karen Allen. They give incredible performances in the film and make the relationship believable. Charles Martin Smith plays an astronomer working with the government who will act as a protector for Jeff Bridges. Of course, the government has the usual thing. They want to capture the alien, of course. So there is that pursuit aspect, a thriller aspect to the movie as well, that gives it, like I said, very evocative of 70s and 80s science fiction. It's also very much the flip side to The Thing, and The Thing, which is probably a far more popular John Carpenter movie, which is about an intelligence being that lands on Earth basically to bring apocalypse, right? And here it's much different, where we learn Jeff Bridges, his civilization is very advanced, they're enlightened, and they're peaceful. And we learn that he's an anthropologist who travels to different planets to learn about different cultures and all that. And he's actually impressed with what he sees with humanity. And although he's troubled by the violence of humanity, there's this idea where he sees potential. So there's a really kind of a positive kind of new age angle to the idea of the extraterrestrial visitor coming to bring enlightenment and peace, which goes back to movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still, E.T. There's always that thorough line where is the extraterrestrial the destroyer, or have they come to bring enlightenment? Of course, he's leaving. He has to leave Earth, of course. But no doubt there is a hopeful message definitely in here in the story. So it's maybe a slightly underrated John Carpenter film. I mean, it's well directed. It's well paced. The acting is really well done, as I've mentioned. Their special effects work, which also is really well done throughout the movie. And I think the idea too with the Bridges character of, having an outsider visit the Earth and kind of bring their outsider perspective is always something that works well, and the movie does a good job of communicating that too. The music score by Jack Nitzsche is really good. If you're familiar with his scores, there's a real ethereal quality to the score throughout the film. A lot of mystery, a lot of just a really great, unique score for a science fiction movie, which is something I would also recommend. Yeah, yeah. So Starman overall a solid movie. I think it holds up remarkably well. On the Blu-ray, there's a commentary track with John Carpenter and Jeff Bridges, which is also really good, really entertaining. They seem to get along really well, and they share stories about the making of the film. They talk about acting a lot, and Carpenter is actually really interested in acting. He had this reputation of being this cold director, but no, he actually worked quite closely with Bridges and Karen Allen and the rest of the cast. So there's a lot of humor in the commentary track as well. Or I think Carpenter at one point says to Bridges, like, "Wow, you were looking really buff back then." I don't know, it's pretty funny, and it seems like everyone had a good. It was hard. You get the sense there was a lot of work. It was hard work making this movie because they were traveling a lot. It's a road picture in many ways. So parts were filmed in Tennessee and through the Midwest, and of course the story ends in Las Vegas. So there is that the movie had the budget to be a road picture, and that's another thing today. It would be rare to see if it were remade. It would probably be all filmed in one location somewhere, but you get to see the changing landscapes of America watching this film, which I think is another thing that really works in its favor. So a really good commentary track. There's also a making of retrospective making of on here as well, with Bridges and Carpenter, and Charles Martin Smith is on there as well, talking about the making of the film. There's also a featurette that was made as the film was being shot. That's also included on the Blu-ray disc. So really good job here. And like I said, John Carpenter. Everyone's always on social media posting about The Thing or Halloween or They Live, his more well-known movies. But Starman really shows another side of Carpenter, I think, where he could really make a really good character-driven movie that has ultimately a really positive, life-affirming message to it. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Starman. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.